also one of our standout seventh players, but now also part of the incredibly successful Irish women's 15s team. Eve Higgins is with us. Good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. I am well, thank you so much.
It was interesting having Zach in yesterday, thinking back on the Olympics. It's been quite the 3 or 4 months for you, I suspect.
Yeah, it's been a crazy even year. I remember sitting down with Alan Temple-Jones last summer and giving a year plan of what the year going up to the Olympics could be, going from sevens into 15s, playing Six Nations and stuff, and then leading into the Olympics. So it's been an unbelievable year and an unbelievable last few months as well, going from both sevens to 15s.
And so even when you were making that plan, you didn't know that you were going to be playing this year in XV1, because at that stage, I'm not sure if you'd even qualified for it, because you hadn't, of course, because the Six Nations hadn't happened.
Yeah, exactly. The plan only went up to the Olympics, and then it was just so huge at the end of the Six Nations to qualify for the WXV1. It's huge for the whole squad, and then all of a sudden there's something else on the calendar that you strive for, and no matter what WXV we were in, I think it was a huge target for a lot of us to try and get some 15s a year ahead of a World Cup.
And so I know you say whichever one, but it ended up being in the top one, and to play as well as you did, it's an incredible end to that period of international activity, which I suspect when you were sitting down a year ago, you're like, who knows where this is going to go? Because it could literally have gone anywhere. We didn't know at that stage how strong or otherwise the squad was going to be.
Yeah, exactly. And like at that time, I don't think even Scott Beamond was hired as coach. I'm not sure. I'd have to look, but. So, we were going into a brand new 15s environment where there was new coaches, and it was a hugely exciting time. And it's so good to be looking back a year on and to see how much we've improved campaign to campaign and how enjoyable of an experience it has been.
Can I just ask you a little bit about the Olympics and the transferable skills from the sevens to the 15s, and how much that whole campaign brought you on as an athlete and as a teammate and as a player? How do you reflect on the benefits of being part of the sevens when it comes to something like what's just happened with the senior 15s women's team?
I suppose, I think one thing is the media that you'd experience during the Olympics is nothing I've ever experienced, and the closest that's come to it is like a Six Nations at home, and that's like a comparable thing there, but on that side of things. But even just, I think the want to go from a game by game basis and really perform, that was something we wanted to do in the Olympics. We wanted to focus game by game, and that's exactly what we did going into WXV. And even from Australia, our test before we flew, we just focused game by game, and we wanted to put performance on performance and keep building on that. And we can now look back now with this WXV campaign and say that we did build from performance onto performance. So it's hugely satisfying to see that.
And is that a psychological mind shift, in a way that you're not kind of daydreaming about a future that's never coming because you haven't done the stuff today to get to that future?
Yeah, no, 100%. Especially in 15s for that WXV, the last time, the majority of the team, I think there was 2 girls in the team that had ever played the Black Ferns in 15s. That was something huge. I can't remember the last time our women's team played Canada, and then USA, a few of us were involved in 2021 when we played them after COVID. And it's huge to kind of go a year from now into a World Cup that we got to play those teams and test ourselves against the teams. So it was kind of like the unknown. We wanted to test ourselves against these teams that we don't usually have the opportunity to play. So then to go out against the Black Ferns and to beat them, and to go out against Canada and be frustrated after a loss, that's huge. And it's huge to see that, we can now go into a World Cup next year knowing that we have played these teams, knowing where we were this time this year, and there's not that unknown going into a World Cup next year where you wouldn't have had the opportunity to ever play the teams.
Eve, I'm always so interested in the mental preparation by individual sports people in a team's game, and particularly in the case for rugby players who play both 7s and 15s. Is there a difference in your own individual approach?
I suppose yes and no. There, I think you rely a lot on coaches, and I think the biggest thing with like a lot of us, well, especially like the girls, say from transitioning from 7s to 15s, we have we have literally the coaches in the room next to us in HPC that that they're never off limits, and like when we're back into 7s, we can continually go to them to get feedback, to grow, to learn. And regarding mental prep, like a lot of the girls like visualization, that's something huge that our S&C and 7s or Curran would be into. And so pre-7s games, there's a lot of girls that would do visualization, and it just depends on the player and what they enjoy. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is that we always have the access there to coaches, and there isn't ever that you're one thing or the other. You can constantly kind of keep on top of both codes.
So sorry, you say HBC there? That's Abbottstown, is it?
It is, yeah.
And so it feels like maybe you're all Ireland players now. Obviously, you play for your provinces as well, but the way that the provincial game is really at its kind of birth point in professional terms in women's rugby in Ireland, is it more that most of you are actually Irish players who would train centrally and then go and play for your provinces, as opposed to normally it's people are playing in the provinces and then you go and you get selected up to play for Ireland? Is that kind of how it's working for you guys at the moment?
Yeah, so like anyone who's on a central contract, that's a women's contract, so it's not 7s or 15s, so we're all under the same roof. And there's been times that we've trained against each other, even, I remember during the Six Nations, when we were preparing for one of our first few games, we had a training session against the 7s girls, and like, we're under the same roof, and there's huge opportunity there to like grow all together. And so yeah, it's never like a kind of, you're never near 15s, you're always there. And like I said, it's hugely valuable to be able to then just go next door and to pick up on with coaches and what you can improve and stuff.
And that's essentially the day job. Then how often would you train with the provinces?
So like I've never been capped for Leinster, so I've never trained for Leinster at all. So how Interpros works at the moment is there's only a set of Interpro games, say in like they had a run of games pre WXV1, so that led into WXV1, where each province would play each other, and then it would go into a seeding of semis to finals. And so at the moment, that's only like one period of the year. It might be only 6 weeks of a year. Other than that, girls are playing with their clubs, or they're training full time in the central program in Abbottstown.
And that's how the team was able to make such incredible progress. From like 2 years ago, we were wondering how much Ireland were going to get beaten by in the Six Nations games, to now next year we'll be like, actually, hang on a second here, these guys have a chance.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think the implementation of more contracts there, like 2 years ago, it's all the likes of like young players like Dana O'Brien, Aoife Dalton. She's only 21. Like as in, these are really young players, but have huge experience now, playing internationally. And it's just great to be able to have young girls coming into programs, and to be able to then have a full-time setup of able to focus on rugby and try and improve. So yeah, like that, it's kind of like you're seeing the benefits of 2-3 years of programs going into performances, which is great.
And the benefits are there for all to see in the already now historic victory against New Zealand in the first game of WXV1. Can you take us through the mindset in the camp that week leading into the New Zealand game?
Yeah, it's a funny one. Like I said, there's 2 girls that ever played Black Ferns. So, like the difference between us 7s girls, we played them plenty of times in 7s and never have gotten a win. So, but like the difference is 15 is a whole different code. So there wasn't that. There is that still kind of awe about them, you know, like it's the black jersey and stuff. But we had huge belief coming in from, you know, we could look back at the Australia game that was the week before and see how we could have been so much better. And all we focused on was our own performance. And there was that belief there within our processes, our system, within our coaching that if we put down our game plan, that we could come away with a victory. So it was, in a way, it was, you know, I think everyone could say it was down to our preparation and that week of actually just believing in our processes that we got away with the victory. And then it doesn't hurt when you have the likes of Aoife Wafer on your team as well.
And then the country's going in on such a high to the Canada match, but that ends in disappointment. And again, can you talk us through what camp was like then leading into the final game against the USA?
Yeah, like the big thing about the games is that, like, for each game we had a 6-day turnaround, which is not a lot of time at all. So you have to kind of review and preview very quickly. And I think there was huge frustration coming from the Canada game. You know, I think everyone after the game wanted to play that back. It was very much a tale of two halves, and you know, maybe if we started the game a bit better, you know, the result would have been different. And you know, and the other thing would be, like, is USA and Canada kind of play a similar game, so it was. You know, we knew going into the USA game that we could right some wrongs. And again, like, we'd only played USA 2 or 3 years ago. So yeah, we definitely wanted to right the wrongs that we did in Canada. And because they, you know, play similarly enough, it was a great opportunity to be able to 6 days later kind of turn that around.
And you come off the bench at a crucial juncture in that game against America, which you eventually win. What was the disappointment like for you personally about being left out of the starting 15 heading into that contest? You use that, like, is there genuinely huge disappointment initially, or is it pure motivation to prove the coach is wrong?
I think the biggest thing that I've experienced this last year is, like, the competition within the squad. So you honestly don't take for granted that you'd be in the 23 alone, the starting 15. You know, and I know it might be my, like, Sevens mindset over the last few years is that you can be just as impactful coming off the bench as starting. And I think that's what I kind of like when you talk about mental preparation. That's how my mental preparation would flip. As soon as, you know, I am on the bench and I know that I can bring a huge impact, and I know being on a starting team when someone comes on and he brings this huge impact, that, like, you know, it can lift you. And I think that's what we all drive as players, is that, you know, it's not about the 1 to 15. It's not even about the 1 to 23. It's about the 1 to 30 and what you can bring to the team. And so it would be very much that. It'd be, I'd want to, for the girls alone, I'd want to lift it and kind of bring impact. And you know, it's the last 20 minutes of a game, and you want to bring as much impact as you possibly can for the girls that have been playing 60 minutes before you.
Do you know what your own future is, or how you combine 7s and 15s into the future? When do you begin to have those conversations? How does that work?
Well, I have 2 weeks off now, so I'll enjoy some time off, and then I, you know, sit down with coaches as soon as I'm back in, and I think we all will, and we'll kind of get a plan of the year ahead, like I had last year. And yeah, we'll see. You know, I'm kind of enjoying my a week or two off now, and then we'll sit down and kind of talk about what the year could look like, the exciting year.
I think it made sense last year that, or this year at the start of the year anyway, that the Olympics was such a high point and a focus. Next year there's an obvious high point and a focus that probably it's relatively straightforward to make a plan for the year.
Yeah, possibly. I don't think I'd want to be coaches. Like, you know what I mean, making these decisions. But yeah, no, it's a huge year ahead, and I think, like a lot of us, obviously, are hugely excited for the opportunity to play a World Cup in England. You know, like, literally a short plane ride away, and Yeah, and we are as a nation, I think we as like in a way European teams take for granted the Six Nations. Like that's huge for us to be able to play Six Nations um before World Cup, when other nations like New Zealand and Australia might only have 2 or 3 games next year. So like yeah, I think going into the year ahead, Six Nations is a huge opportunity for us to grow again going into a World Cup.
Well, best of luck with everything, Eve. Thanks a million for making the time to talk to us, and congratulations on a great season.
Oh, thank you so much. Cheers.
Sorry, did you have something else there? Oh, sorry. Still working this out, Colm.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, right,
The best question of the whole. Go on.
if you were starting off and interested in participating in rugby, right, in your late teens or early 20s. What's that, sorry, Arthur?
Oh, yeah, Eve's still there. Go on and ask her.
Oh, is he still there?
Yeah. Sorry, go on. Colm has the best question. He left it
Sorry,
for last,
Eve.
Eve.
Oh, no bother at all.
So a question from the audience here, which is me. If you were starting off playing rugby now, right, and I think you're probably one of the most qualified people to answer this, and if you had the game for both, would you start in 7s or start in 15s?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think it honestly depends. Like how I got into 7s initially was that there was not a lot of girls playing rugby, and it was easier to put a 7-on-7 team together than a 15-on-15. And I think that's where 7s can be so huge for women's rugby in general, because if numbers are low, it's easier to field 7 on the pitch. But honestly, I think there's people that enjoy 7s, there's people that enjoy 15s, and there's people that don't like 7s and don't like 15s. It really depends on what you like. But I just know like 7s will, it gives you a huge a basic ground game of touching skills that you might necessarily hone in on as a 15s player. You kind of yeah, it kind of it forces you. There's no, in a way, hiding on a 7s pitch, so it kind of forces you to keep on top of all your skills.
I'm glad we got that.
There you go. Great
Is that
answer,
okay?
Eve. Yeah, no, perfect. You managed to ride both horses beautifully there. It's true, though, isn't it? It is actually like the best thing that could have happened to a sport that needs to drag people in and grow quickly, is that there is this very accessible, very easily understandable version of a game that otherwise is actually quite technical and difficult.
Yeah, exactly. And like the big thing as well about rugby is there's, no matter what your size, what your position, like there's a space for you on a rugby pitch. So that's why I think rugby in itself is such a good sport. And I don't know, I might be biased. I just love it.
Eve, good stuff. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Thanks very much. Cheers, guys.
It's Eve Higgins there, star of our Olympic 7s team, and of course now our 15s team as well.